Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Furkhan Dandia and I'm a therapist. And in this video, I will be talking about living with conviction and rising against tyranny. So, in the famous words of Plato, no one is more hated than he who speaks truth. And these words still ring true, which is why historically the parables of men who pursued the truth often did it in isolation and against a system of naysayers. So I've reflected on a lot of these stories of the prophetic figures such as Musa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Yusuf alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam, and our beloved Prophet Muhammad, Rasulullah alayhi salam. I see the similarities and why God chose these men. I also recently observed one of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf's lectures where he pointed out that the Quran constantly shares the stories of the prophets who suffered in the pursuit of truth. These individuals had to rise against a group of people, systems, or situations to fight for the truth. Often that would come at a cost, and they would be alone in their pursuit. However, what I'm fascinated by is the conviction these men demonstrated despite the setbacks and backlash. And I've wondered what made them persist in living their truth through all the adversity. From a psychological perspective, I've tried to reverse engineer how one remains faithful to one's beliefs and steadfast despite any setbacks that come with conviction. So there's this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche that stands out for me when I think about these men. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. So this why that Nietzsche is referring to is the fascinating aspect of conviction. In our modern era, significant research has explained subconsciously or even consciously why people have pursued the truth. One of the books that has impacted people for the past 70 years is the work of Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. In this book, Frankl discusses logotherapy, which he developed after surviving the Holocaust. And based on the quote from Nietzsche, Frankl found his why in the concentration camps of one day being able to see his family and wife on the other side. Objectively, that sentiment and motivation may have seemed absurd given the circumstances. However, it allowed Frankl to sustain the suffering at the hands of the Nazis. And through this pursuit of meaning in his experience, Frankl was able to build resilience and live with purpose. The same idea was captured in this self-determination theory. I've provided a link to the study that was developed by Detsy and Ryan, where they explored how living according to intrinsic values supported psychological well-being and fulfilled an individual's basic needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Conversely, when one lives without embodying the truth or opposes one's beliefs, that's when a lot of people experience the psychological discomfort of cognitive dissonance. Unfortunately, rather than confronting their behavior or choices in life, many people then resort to defense mechanisms such as avoidance, projection, distortion, or even minimization. Unfortunately, only it's the agony that worsens. The agony then manifests as stress and anxiety as our bodies release cortisol when we're in this state. And then many people derive positive benefits from pursuing the truth, even in post-traumatic situations. There's research that indicates people living with solid values recover quickly and grow because of their resilience. The pursuit of truth in these instances allows people to have acceptance and experience transformation, which is a chief tenet of acceptance and commitment therapy. Now, there's a more profound benefit to living with the truth, and that's often lost in the mainstream world. The concept of individuation that Carl Jung developed postulated that living in alignment with one's values and inner truths led to a life of wholeness. And then from a more profound perspective, spirituality consists of truth seeking from an existential view. So Jung also emphasized integrating one's shadow which has become a mainstream concept and is depicted in many superhero movies. And why is this idea of the shadow so appealing? Because we all have our shadow selves that we are constantly battling and dealing with. And that's something I will explore in the future. Jung explained that part of the individualization process is facing the shadow self rather than repressing it and integrating it into our psyche. Many other psychologists, such as Maslow and Carl Rogers, pioneers in humanistic psychology, talked about peak experiences where individuals can have an altered state of consciousness once they have self actualized. So, once we integrate the shadow and start living in alignment with our values and beliefs, we can begin to self actualize and experience flow. Now, as I alluded to these individuals earlier, such as Musa alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam, and Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, it is essential to bring it full circle. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had a reputation for demonstrating integrity and honesty in all his dealings, which led him to receiving the nickname of Sadiq, which translates to truthful. Over time, he started to find it increasingly difficult to integrate with his surroundings and the state of the culture around him, which was full of idol worshippers and alcoholism. To remain grounded and find peace, he would often seek out solitude and meditate for hours in the cave of Mount Hira, ultimately receiving his first revelation there. Once he had discovered what he had been pursuing, his conviction came with fortitude. That meant turning against his remaining family members and friends, leaving his home city of Mecca, and being tormented, insulted, and beaten. But all he did was bend, but not break. For every test, there was a revelation that would often help to guide him. These revelations taught something profound, and the wisdom and teaching behind the words are timeless and not bound by any one situation. The wisdom of Islam, if applied in one's life practically, guides us to seek spiritual truths by continuing to live a life of purpose in the name of Allah and stand for justice, even when it is easier to turn a blind eye. Once we have found conviction, we start speaking the truth, even in the most challenging situations. Speaking the truth means we must be honest with ourselves first and foremost to avoid the cognitive dissonance that can shake us. Fittingly, there's an entire surah in the Quran about the prophets. The names are different, but the mission and the pursuit are the same. These men lived in the name of Allah, in search and against all the calamities that struck them. All of this and more is encapsulated in Surah Al-Anbiya. So I will read the English translation of verses 7 to 19. We did not send messengers before you, O Prophet, except mere men inspired by us. If you polytheists do not know this already, then ask those who have knowledge of the scriptures. We did not give those messengers supernatural bodies that did not need food, nor were they immortal. Then we fulfilled our promise to them, saving them along with whoever we willed and destroying the transgressors. We have surely revealed to you a book in which there is glory for you. Will you not then understand? Imagine how many societies of wrongdoers we have destroyed, raising up other people after them. When the wrongdoers sensed the arrival of our torment, they started to run away from their cities. They were told, "Do not run away. Return to your luxuries and your homes, so you may be questioned about your fate." They cried, "Woe to us! We have surely been wrongdoers." They kept repeating their cry until we moved them down, leaving them lifeless. We did not create the heavens and the earth and everything in between for sport. Had we intended to take some amusement, we could have found it in our presence, if that had been our will. In fact, we hurl the truth against falsehood, leaving it crushed, and it quickly vanishes. And woe be to you for what you claim. To him belong all those in the heavens and the earth, and those nearest to him are not too proud to worship him, nor do they tire. The pursuers of truth who lived with conviction and continue to do tap into something deeply profound. On the surface, it may seem difficult and tiring, but on a spiritual level, it is enlightening and energizing. These individuals do not tire in their worship and trials, for an eternal reward is waiting on the other side. When one starts to live and act by the truth, there are glimpses of that eternal reward in this life. As we all know, this life is a short trip on our endless journey. Whether we believe them or not, the men I referred to and their stories have stood the test of time for a reason. They were not sent only for their people, but also for all of humanity, so we can learn from them and follow their examples. The truth may seem lonely at times, but so is anything that requires hard work. So I hope this video offers some light. Again, these are all explorations that I'm going through and trying to understand myself as I learn more about this faith. So if you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share with others. Thank you.